Joe Williamson, and this is That Nerd Dad podcast. Today's guest, I'm just diving right into it. Today's guest is none other than Victor Lucas. Now, for those of us in Canada who are video game fans, we know who that is. Maybe someone else who's new to the video game world may not recognize it. Victor Lucas was a big part of my childhood, and I have tried very hard to not fanboy during this interview. I think I accomplished it. Victor Lucas was one of the people who really started, and I'm going to call him a pioneer, in the video game entertainment industry. When I say that, I mean, he brought a video game review show in Electric Playground and Reviews on the Run to mainstream media. And he was ahead of his time. Now you can still catch Electric Playground, Reviews on the Run on Twitch, YouTube, all those channels. But Victor Lucas is at the forefront of it all. So I was thrilled that he said he would sit and talk to me for 30 minutes. This is that interview. And I said this to him just before, but try not to fanboy too much. Victor Lucas. Victor Lucas, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Hello. Thanks for having me on, Nerd Dad. Do you like Nerd Dad or you like Joe?
It doesn't matter. That Nerd Dad kind of is my branding. Helps me get out there a little bit. A lot of Joes out there. There's even a few Nerd Dads, but that's why I had to go with that Nerd Dad just because it was available.
I get it. You're speaking my language. We are all nerd brethren, aren't we?
Oh, well, I mean, look, I'm in my mom's basement. You are in a nerd wonder room down there. I'm in my basement, which, thanks to COVID has become my studio. And I've done so many incredible things out of this basement. We called the podcast Vic's Basement as a tribute to this ridiculous, shrine of geekdom that I have down here. But I didn't know that it would eventually be my set. Like I interviewed Mads Mikkelsen the other day from this freaking place. Like it freaks me out, but it's incredibly convenient to be able to walk downstairs and make things and talk to people all over the world. It's pretty cool. You've come a long way from Reviews on the Run, Electric Playground, back to your basement. But I have to imagine that passion for the video game community probably started in a basement somewhere, and now you've come full circle.
I mean, I think what people might not understand, because, and I totally understand that they don't understand, because everybody's busy and they have their own stuff to deal with and their own content that they follow. But I wouldn't have pushed so hard to create Electric Playground and start this path if it wasn't just like all of my heart, man. Like if I just didn't obsess and freak out and love all of this stuff, and I always have. And it started with a passion for video games on the Atari 2600. My mom was incredibly patient with me. I spent a lot of money, paper route money, and then later part-time job money, and then I was a waiter on games and research around video games. And it was out of love. I've just loved this business and this industry and the creativity in it. And I wanted to know more. And I saw that there was an opportunity to make a TV show that honored the industry. Like really, that was the idea, was like, let's honor this industry. I didn't know where the show would go. I didn't know how long it would last. I didn't know if it would ever get on the air. But what I wanted to do was make a TV show that was in the video game industry, not this, marketing vehicle to promote the video game industry, but was actually embedded with developers and visiting them and
you were
shoulder to shoulder with them.
You were video game news. It wasn't just, to your point, a marketing vehicle to sell the latest game. It was news. It was updates. It was, I mean, look, we take for granted what we have now on the internet. But when I would, because I can never find the exact time, but when I would come across Electric Playground, Reviews on the Run, City TV locally, And I stop. You got to watch. You got to hear what's coming and what Victor's excited about and that passion. Now, how did we go from waiter to television mogul, pioneer?
Uh, well, it was, it was a lot of bumps I think that the secret for us was it's different now because there's no holding back on your ability to create something and platform it and get out there and share your voice. The secret is to get people to see that voice. And I run into that now with our content. But back then, I think the secret was just the ability to communicate around a concept. And right from the beginning, I mean, I've said this in other interviews and stuff before, so if you've heard it, bear with me. But the first thing that I did is I wrote 100 ideas down when I was a waiter and an actor, and I wanted to pivot. I was acting, and I loved it, but I wasn't a big fan of auditioning for commercials, and I just didn't like the idea that my destiny was in somebody else's hands. And I wanted to marry my passion for games, which I've always had, and my passion for expression and communication. And so I wrote down 100 ideas of different businesses or different, concepts that I could push forward with, knowing that it would take a lot of collaboration, starting with my incredible girlfriend, who is now my wife, and we've been together for a long time. But she was supportive and starting with those 100 ideas, literally, I wrote them down. I said, I'm not stopping until I have 100 different ideas. And I had all kinds of business concepts and stuff in there, which is a different discussion. But eventually I settled on a television show that utilized elements from Entertainment Tonight and Siskel and Ebert. And at the time, those were both terrific television shows, iconic television shows. And I thought, and also a little bit of Much Music, which is a Canadian institution, sadly completely devastated by the mishandling of its corporate overlords now. I mean, what a joke Much Music has become. But back then it was incredible. It was authentic, and it was filled with really wonderful personality. So I looked at Much Music. I looked at the on-set reporting and the behind-the-scenes reporting that Entertainment Tonight used to be known for before it turned into sort of gossipy garbage. And I looked at the authentic elements in Siskel and Ebert, where they would go off script and they would just bicker and fight about their passion for these things. And I thought, in there is a great collection of ideas for a half-hour weekly video game TV show. And so I walked into lots of rooms and I met with lots of people. Game Informer magazine was the first magazine that ever wrote anything about the concept. We sent them our early demo, and they liked it. And then I started to meet with broadcasters. We went to a television convention that's like E3, although it has, through the face of TV, kind of weathering the storm of the internet. It's probably a lot different now, but it's called NatP. And we went to a few of those and met with broadcasters from across North America and some syndicators and some network executives. And eventually it came down to getting broadcasters at local stations to sign contracts with us that they would pick up the TV show. And then we would go and get advertising support from the video game industry, showing them that the concept was different than anything that had been done before. This was going to be a self-syndicated half-hour weekly show that was going to come and visit you guys, let you tell us about your passion and your fire and why you're sleeping in the offices, which was not taboo back then, by the way. Everybody was young, including us. I mean, we were creating whole seasons of TV show, like eating Taco Bell, and sharing motel rooms up and down the coast of America. And then eventually we had enough stations and enough sponsors and enough support and enough of a team, a tiny little team, to launch in 1997. And we got our first season off, and we did really well with our ratings. I still have the TV guide that came out of San Francisco. The Drew Carey's on the cover, and in the pages on our Saturday afternoon, there's our TV show, The Electric Playground, and they were very happy there, and the other broadcasters were quite happy. And then we went back to NatP a couple more times, and we picked up support from Chum, which was the new VR stations, and then they eventually became City when Rogers acquired everything. Actually, I think it was City, and then Rogers acquired everything and turned everything into City. But we had a deal with Discovery Science for a couple of seasons. In there, Space became our first network. MTV Canada became a network, and then, of course, our relationship with G4. We were the longest running external production partner with G4. We produced hundreds of episodes of content for them. And then G4 launched in Canada, and we already had a relationship with Rogers, and they wanted to make it a little bit more exclusive. And at first, they contracted me and our team to produce The Lab with Leo Laporte, which was our first foray into a daily show. And then during the course of that, we had discussions of, like, let's make Electric Playground a daily show, and let's dive into this culture, and let's go behind the scenes on all of this stuff. And we did. And I didn't know if it was going to work, sort of expanding video game. I thought it would, but I didn't know for sure that expanding out from games to talk about movies and TV shows and all the other cool, fun things that gamers are into was going to be successful. But it really was. That first episode, when it aired, I was like, holy shit, this is a show. This is cool. I would love to watch the show. It was like Marvel movies and Halo and, some cool piece of technology. I'm sure we did a visit to Tesla before any of the stuff happened with Tesla. It was just everything cool every single day was the motto. And that's exactly what we provided.
To see
so it was
a
lot of bumps, but we got there.
To see you guys come of age, literally as the industry was about to explode. Like, I mean,
right.
Your timing couldn't have been better to watch an industry go from, hey, my kids play video games, to that kid now has kids of his own. And that's when everything just blew up, because now the nostalgia was no longer Disney movies. It was video games and
it was all of it.
Books.
And it was all of it. Yeah. 100%. And that was one of the profound things. Like, my life really changed, personally. Like, my job has never changed, still today. Like, later today, I'm going to be streaming the ROG Ally and chatting with people watching the stream and talking about the games and stuff that we saw and played. And it's never changed. But what has changed is the access to more and more people. And that was through us becoming a daily TV show. And it was incredibly significant. Like, we were suddenly in people's lives every day with it wasn't just us in our studio, it was a great collection of individuals, but we were everywhere, and we were on location with all kinds of incredible creativity. And it's the coolest stuff that human beings make. And we really solved it. Like, we really were able to reach people in a profound way, because most of the other entertainment stuff that was out there was, very popular, but it was about reality television and a little gossipy. It was different. I don't want to disparage the work that other people do. I don't want to do that work. I wanted to get into the nerdiness of creativity and the fire of it and the commonality of it across movies and games and comics. And how the EP as a daily concept sprang, because even before that, I'm jumping all over the place, but back in the early 2000s, we had a deal with a handshake agreement that ended up not happening because of 9/11 of all things. But we had a handshake agreement with Discovery Science to make a show called Entertainment Tomorrow, and it was going to be kind of what the EP Daily was kind of the distillation of that concept. But these are the most profitable pieces of entertainment that in the world that humans make, like the sci-fi stuff and the superheroes and the video games and the cool technology. But it's so underserved by sustained, regular access and conversation. There is a ton of hypothesis and speculation and cynicism around it in sort of corporate news media stuff out there. I don't mean to disparage news media, but there's just this remove. And I didn't want that remove. I wanted to be there with these people making, and that's exactly what we did. But what happened is when we accelerated and grew to that. Suddenly I'd walk down the street in any city and people would know who I was. And they could be at any age, little kids, 6 years old, you know, grandfathers, 95 years old, everybody in between. I was once talking to a CRA officer who was, and nothing bad happened, but they were looking for a friend of mine, and they called me through the office, and they called me, and they had something to do with a friend of mine, but it wasn't bad, and nothing was bad. They were just looking for the person. And then she said, I'm really not allowed to do this, but I have to tell you, I just love your show. My daughter and I and my husband, we all watch it every single night, and I never stop. This is the best content out there. I don't know exactly the terminology she used, but she was so effusive and so passionate, and that's what changed. It's like we served up this marginalized, you know, siloed, quote unquote, niche type of content on a mainstream platter. And our ratings were solid because we had, you know, we were in 100 million homes in the States, and we were all over the map in terms of, you know, where our time slots were, because it was syndicated again. But everywhere we were 1 or 2 in the time slot, you know, and so we might air after, at the time, I think it was Craig Ferguson or something like that. And we would be #1 in the time slot. You know, we were right up there with TMZ and the other shows. But we were, you know, a tiny little independent production company, relatively speaking, out of Vancouver. And so we didn't have the you know, 700 other media properties and all kinds of other things that we could put into a deal that would keep us on a runway forever. And when Rogers, honestly, this is what happened. Rogers pivoted to hockey. They bought the hockey rights for NHL, and they spent billions of dollars on that. Yep. It was a huge deal. And things changed like crazy through that. And then G4 sputtered and faltered through the exact reason. Like, and again, I don't mean to insult the people that worked really hard at G4.
Let's do this. No. Yeah.
Well, the new G4 was a total cluster, but the previous iteration, they were trying to court a tiny audience. You know, they were trying, and it's cable. And so you kind of say, okay, well, it's cable. We have to be weird, and we have to be different, and we have to be edgy. But that audience was so freaking small, and they were working so hard to get it. And it's like they were fighting with NeoGAF at the time to be hipper than, you know, the cynics on NeoGAF, or like Reset. What is it? Reset Era right now is the new version of that. And the audience is massive. The audience that don't know and don't play and don't have any clue and don't have time, that is an audience that you want. And you can get that audience. We did. Yep. We didn't know we would, but we did. We got lots of people that never played a video game. I had a movie critic in Vancouver. He was in his 70s, and I'd see him at screenings all the time. And he says, you know, I don't know what you guys are talking about on your show at all, but I watch it every night and I love it because you guys are clearly having a good time. And it's so fun just to see what you guys are getting into and how you deliver it. And that's what you want when you're making a TV show or any media, for Christ's sakes. You want to be inclusive, you know, and so much of what is made now is so exclusive and like chasing the tiniest little group. And I know it's splintered and fractured and it's, you know, everybody's platformed, but it's so small, and it shouldn't be.
I think one of the reasons for that is, and I've been told this myself, is you get told you got to niche down. You need to niche down.
Well, that's what YouTube lives off of.
You got to niche down and find that niche audience.
Well, it's because the robots like to categorize so that they can put you in a tiny little box. And I mean, God, even viewers like that. I can't tell you how many times I've tweeted about what an asshole Trump is and how much of a destructive force he has been in the world, clearly. And I've had people say, well, stick to video games, or you can't talk about it. You know, why are you talking about that? You're Canadian. And, you know, it's like, okay, all right. Yeah, I'm not a person of this world, and I can't have any thoughts outside of games. I get you. But, you know, that's what the analytics of YouTube and all of these other platforms are all about. They just want you to stick with your box. That's it, you know?
No, they're not looking for broad horizons, but I
No.
think you've touched on a couple things there, and one of them was enthusiasm, and that's essentially it. Because I believe people can smell it. They can smell sincerity,
Oh yeah.
and when it comes through, regardless of what you're watching or listening, whether or not you're interested in the topic, whether or not you're knowledgeable about the topic, if that person is selling you something and you can feel it from their soul that they believe it,
Mm,
you're hooked. You're
right.
hooked on it.
Right.
And that's what look, I mean, 20 minutes has flown by. I'm ready to start my own media company. Like I'm ready to do this today because of you. Um, and I'll say I listened before earlier today. I listened to your TED Talk, which was from
Yeah.
2000. My notes say 2011.
Right.
The 3D rules. First off, I loved it. I'm gonna watch it again. I'm gonna share it with people
Oh.
because I never watched it. I was doing a little prep.
Oh,
work.
that's very kind.
I
Thank
like to
you.
do a little research once in a while before I talk to someone. And
Yep.
and and the 3D rules was so good. And part of me was midway through it. I was going, I wonder how long this took him to do. How long did the 3D rules come up with, develop before you presented what I saw on YouTube?
Um, it was incredibly flattering to be asked. My friend Christopher Bennett, who is now an agent, a talent agent, and has had different jobs. I met him when he was working at Best Buy, and then he ended up working at Vancouver Film School. But he also oversaw TEDx Vancouver, and he reached out and said, "We want you to speak." And I was incredibly flattered and completely overwhelmed and didn't know what the hell I was going to talk about. And he said, "You should do something personal, but frame it from the vantage point of your expertise." And one of the tricky things with a lot of the TEDx and TED Talks out there is that sometimes they can become overtly promotional, and it's because people have interesting careers generally if they're going to be asked to speak in something like this. And so I didn't want to do that. But I also wanted
talk
to
about EP for 20 minutes.
Yeah. But obviously that's the point of context for a lot of people. And I have an interesting job, and I always have had an interesting job. So I knew something was in there to discuss. But I also thought the biggest thing that has ever happened to me is that my wife and I had, she got pregnant, and we were about to have a baby, and it was the greatest, and it remains, and it will all forever be the greatest gift I've ever had in my life. Apart from meeting this woman who is a part of my heart, like she's my soul. She's everything, and she's
not going to watch this. You don't have to say that.
No, but it's true. And I end up talking about my achievements so much, but so much of my whole existence is tied to this woman and this person that has supported me and put up with me and my crazy freaking ideas for so goddamn long. But we were about to have a kid. And so that was the most important thing going on for me. And so in there, I thought, okay, what if I boil this all down and get very personal and get into a little bit of my thinking? And I just tweeted out just right now, like, people spend so much damn time being negative and just complete assholes. I reviewed the Indiana Jones movie, which I love, the new one.
I watched it this morning as well.
Yeah, I love the freaking movie. I was sitting in the theater yelping and coming very close to tears. I didn't quite cry, but I was, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but I love the damn movie, and everybody was so good in it. And Harrison Ford he's my favorite actor of all time. And it was just beautiful. And James Mangold is such an amazing filmmaker. So I said that. And then so many people have just have this hatred for anything to do with Lucasfilm. And there's so much negativity out there. And so I got this flood of shill, how much did Disney pay you? And just rampant negativity. And I get that from time to time. You can't help it. I'm a critic, so people can critique me. That's fine. But
Twitter's not exactly known for its good vibes.
Yeah, but I think the inverse of that is if you do like something, And that's what EP is hell, you know, I don't know if you swear, but that's what EP is. Like,
You
if
can
you do
swear here
like
if you want.
something,
Yeah.
okay, like, express that you like it. You know, the world needs more expression of enjoyment and joy, you know, especially now, especially because we're so goddamn fractured as a society, and everybody has this, you know, voice, as dumb and ignorant and hateful as some people can be. They have the ability to get out there and spread all that. And there seems to be this weird correlation. The more of an asshole you are, the more you know, spread that. And
well, because
like,
the
I want people
algorithms
to
love it. The
and
algorithms
the
love it.
algorithms love it. But also, I don't know. I think people that, you know, have an appreciation for the difficulty of building things and have an intelligence and an empathy generally don't waste a lot of time on these platforms and these social kind of constructs, and because they're busy, you know, they're off creating things. And I just want to encourage anybody out there. We need to share our respect and our admiration and our appreciation for things that we care about. We need to not convert, but express this stuff to, I don't know, change the dynamics just a little bit if we can, because God, it's just overt cynicism and hatred and negativity, and everybody's wrong and everybody's out greedy, and it's like, come on, for Christ's sakes, man. Anyways, so
you want to end on a happy note? That's a good one.
Yeah.
I think I think there's an element of the fact that before the internet, the village idiot didn't have a community. The village idiot was the village idiot.
Oh, good point. Good point. Yeah.
Now they can find each other and form their own little community, and that gives them a voice. And that's where I think we're hearing a lot of just village idiots. That's all we're hearing.
With a lot of time,
ostracized, has now found his family.
Yes. Yeah.
That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and sadly, that ignorance is also layered with arrogance, and so people don't spend any time to reflect on the what ifs, or to research, or to genuinely communicate and listen. There's just a lot. And you know what? I mean, I'm sure it exists on both sides of any topic. An educated person might also have an incredible amount of arrogance and be dismissive of other people and non-empathetic of other people. But we're really in this combustible situation right now. And it's not just a political thing. It's like a human discourse thing. And it's so volatile, and it sucks. And you know, as a champion of creativity, you know, as somebody that has been doing and sharing and spreading the love around invention and ambition to entertain for so goddamn long, it really concerns me. You know, like, I really worry about the people that I know Harvey Smith quite well from Redfall, you know, and from Arcane in Austin. And to see articles written about him with anonymous employees throwing him under the bus, it breaks my freaking heart, you know, because that guy helped to create Deus Ex, and, you know, was a part of Dishonored, which is you know, that was our game of the year in 2011. Like, the guy is a genius game maker. And anyways, it's a treacherous world out there. There's a lot of beauty in the ability to give everybody an opportunity to communicate out there, but there is so much nastiness. So I guess the only thing I would say to combat it is to let people know that you like something, and if you can get to those creators through social media or whatever, let them know. You know, let them know. I you know, speaking from my own vantage point, when I see 50 comments of Lucasfilm sucks, and then somebody says, "Oh man, I see that you're as passionate about Indiana Jones as I am, and thank you for this review. It's great. I was worried, but now I see that other people can like this thing. It makes me feel excited to go." And that's a comment that really gets to me. That's like, okay, all right, thank you. I mean, that's and you know, so if it can help a critic, it can certainly help the creators who are so freaking vulnerable, right? Like, imagine you've spent 4 years on a game or a movie or whatever, and you pop it out into the world, and it's just terrible numbers and awful review scores, and
it's not. It doesn't even have to be popped out. Sometimes the idea has to be floated. Hey, they're going to make this movie. Oh, that's a terrible idea. I hate everything about this movie already.
Yeah.
Right. Victor Lucas, thank you so much for doing this. I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to reference your TED Talk because I think it summarizes this a little bit. The last point, which is don't be a dick.
That's
don't be a dick.
Sometimes it might be hard, but just try not to be a dick.
I might get that tattooed somewhere. Who knows?
Well, yeah. If you watch that TED Talk, I certainly didn't coin that phrase, but I try to.
You make it your own.
Subscribe to it. Yeah, I try.
No, it was really good. I highly recommend. I'll put a link somewhere to it in one of the descriptions somewhere along the line. But awesome. I greatly appreciate your time today. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.
I cannot thank him enough. I hit end recording, and the first thing he said to me was, "Did I give you what you need? Do you want to ask some more questions? I got more time for you if you need it." I try to be respectful of my guest's time. If I say I want to have a 30-minute conversation with you, I try to keep it a tight 30. That is my commitment. That is me being a man of my word. So for him to say afterwards, do you need anything else? And I was like, nah, man, we're good. I'm just thrilled to have talked to him. So check out Victor Lucas on all of the socials. Check out Electric Playground on all of the socials. I'll be sure to include the link to that TED Talk below because that is a hell of a lot of fun. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for telling a friend. Please hit subscribe. I have to say that, right? You have to say that because if I don't say it, you might not do it. So please hit subscribe and follow and blah, 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 blah. And we'll do this again next week. Take care. Be well. Be safe.